Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, Part 2 of the modern era, or as some folks call it, the Michael Bay Turtles trilogy, is in theaters now, and with this video, I will give you my thoughts on the film. First and foremost, I want to say that I grew up a fan of the Turtles from the old 80s toys and the 87 series, and here's the thing. If you grew up a fan of the 1987 Turtles TV series, this movie is a living, breathing cartoon. Let me get that out of the way right now. If you're expecting like a gritty, kind of realistic type of tone, like with the Captain America movies or even with the 90s Turtles movie, that's not what you're going to get here. The movie is a literal cartoon come to life. It almost at some points feels like one of those live action / cartoon hybrid movies, you know, like Space Jam or Roger Rabbit, because the CGI for the Turtles, even though it's much improved from CGI of years gone by, still, especially with the action scenes, looks like a cartoon. Now, is that good or bad? Well, it's up to you, but understand before going into this film that this movie does not explore the dark side of the Turtles at all, but there are some pretty good character moments throughout. This movie is pretty much a retelling, a loose retelling of the first 5 episodes of the 87 series, aka Season 1. Everything from the creation of Bebop and Rocksteady, which of course was different in this version, to the arrival of Krang, to even the subplot of the Turtles wanting to be human, be out of the sewers, and especially Michelangelo's desire to kind of fit amongst the world is explored throughout this film. And it's very similar to the X-Men. And Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird have gone on record in the past in saying that the Turtles were inspired by Marvel Comics, specifically Daredevil. And I can kind of see it here, you know, and it's been explored in the past with Turtles. They want to kind of not be in the shadows all the time, but as ninjas and as protectors of, you know, the city or protectors of the world, they kind of have to be in shadow, but a part of them wants to live normal lives, and that theme is explored in this film, and at one point in the movie actually splits the Turtles in half. So that theme is definitely explored, and of course the whole point is that they are brothers, but they're not a team. And in this movie, they have to learn to work together in order to defeat Krang and Shredder, of course. And I really like how they explored that theme, and I like how, you know, on the opposite side of the spectrum, the villains all kind of don't really trust each other. They're all trying to kind of betray each other. There's a scene very early in the film, and this is not really a spoiler, but Rocksteady and Bebop are talking about creating their own Foot Clan and kind of taking control themselves. And I like how they're kind of sowing the seeds there for later on in the film when certain characters betray others. I like the fact that we saw a lot of kind of, again, the early Turtles episodes. It kind of had everything with the exception of the Mousers. No Mousers in this episode, or in this movie. Now, as I said in the beginning of the review, this movie is a living, breathing cartoon. So, other than what I've already mentioned in the past about themes and whatnot, do not expect this movie to have a character like a Baron Zemo or, you know, a villain like that, because essentially the villains are all cartoon characters. You could practically see the wispy mustache on Krang. I mean, Krang is just, you know, obviously Krang is was created for the 87 series, and Brad Garrett's performance as Krang wasn't exactly close to the original, but it still was cartoony and wacky and, just over the top. Of course, Bebop and Rocksteady were bumbling idiots, as they're supposed to be. But I felt like the whole joke of the movie was that Shredder is trying so hard, who was played by Brian T., trying so hard to be so serious throughout this movie, and just didn't, like, he's surrounded by idiots. You know what I mean? He's surrounded by a bunch of morons and a bunch of wacky characters, and he's trying so hard to be the straight-laced villain. And it's just, you know, even Baxter Stockman, even Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman, his whole thing is he wants to be known as this great scientist who's accomplished great things in the history books, even if it's at the cost of all mankind. So, you know, that kind of wackiness is, you know, it's accepted. It's Turtles, okay? It's Turtles. You can't go into it at all at all expecting this movie to be anything like the 90s movie, because the 1990 Turtles movie was very, very gritty, a great film. I had fun with this movie, though. There are issues I had with the film. Like I said, the CGI is a little wonky, I thought. I don't think we got enough Shredder in this movie. I felt like Shredder should have had much more of a presence. The introduction of Krang kind of came out of nowhere. And again, we're avoiding spoilers here. And I personally felt the biggest detriment to the movie, in my opinion, was the portrayal of Casey Jones. Stephen Amell is great as Arrow. He's a good actor. And I think he could have pulled off Casey Jones, but the directing here and the movie, and for those who are still confused about this, Michael Bay did not direct this movie. Dave Green did. This movie's directed by Dave Green. Michael Bay just produced the movie. Dave Green did not direct the first Turtles. This is only Dave Green's second movie he's ever directed. But I thought the direction of Casey Jones was very, very uncharacteristic of what he was in the comics and in the TV series and in the movie, the old one. Stephen Amell is way too much of a pretty boy. He does not fit this role at all. He talks way too much. He's cutting too many wisecracks. He's smiling too much. That's not who Casey Jones is. Casey Jones is a badass, and Stephen Amell has his moments of badassness. There are some great fight scenes in this movie, even though I will say this, I don't feel the fight scenes in this movie come close to the ones in the first film. I thought that the Shredder versus Turtles confrontation at the end of the first movie was significantly more fun to watch than the Turtles Krang one in this movie, and some of it was kind of similar, but the first one I thought was very much more, well done. I thought Casey Jones in this movie it didn't make sense. He's supposed to be a vigilante. He's supposed to be pretty much a borderline psychopath. And in the original comics, he owned an auto shop. In this film, he's a cop, which already kind of humanizes him. And then he becomes, a vigilante, so to speak. But I felt like the transition from cop to vigilante was really very poorly written. I just thought it was very poorly written and completely unfitting of the Casey Jones character. I mean, again, Stephen Amell did the best he could, but the directing of this character was completely wrong. Also, Megan Fox as April was not in the film as much as I was expecting. And the other thing that's really weird that I thought was a little strange was that even though we originally heard that William Fichtner was signed on to do 3 Turtles movies, he was not in this movie at all. He was nowhere to be found, and also Whoopi Goldberg's character was nowhere to be found. And I actually stayed for the credits to see if there was a credit to William Fichtner. Maybe he got his scenes removed, but no, he's nowhere to be found at all. Also, Johnny Knoxville does not portray Leonardo in this movie. Pete Plosdek did, and I was listening for the Knoxville voice, but he wasn't there. So, different voices, different film. Overall, I had fun with this movie, though. I honestly had fun with the movie. Again, if you are a fan of the 87 Turtles, it's a cartoon movie. It's goofy. It's wacky. A lot of the stunts don't really make any sense as far as physics go, but the first movie had that same problem. It really is very much a tribute to the 87 series, and there's so many little nods to the series. I mean, from the beeper to the turtle van is here, and there's a few other surprises which I'm not going to spoil for you guys, but they revolve around Krang and Shredder and a weapon. You should be able to figure out what that is from that if you watch the 87 series, even though it's portrayed very much differently in this version. Tons and tons of homages. I thought the comedy was very hit or miss. Bebop and Rocksteady had a lot of physical comedy, a lot of goofball comedy like from the old cartoon. Some hit and some miss, but I will say this movie is very safe to take your kids to. It is a very, very safe film. It's a kid's movie. It really is a kid's movie. I had a good time watching it, though. Is it a great movie, though? Here's how I feel about it. It does what it's supposed to do. And if you're sick of comic book movies and if you're sick of, this kind of film, with the wackiness and whatnot and the over-the-top humor and the slapstick, this is not the movie for you because it does kind of follow the same formula that a lot of other comic book movies follow. It's definitely there, with the way that the movie's paced and the way the acts are structured. It's definitely a very basic movie. Great movie. I would not call it a great movie. I would call it a fun movie. It's a popcorn movie, and that's what it was supposed to be, and that's pretty much what it is. So when you judge it based on that criteria, it works. If you try to judge it on like The Dark Knight or Civil War, where you have like a comic book movie with themes that really resonate with us, there's a few here and there about teamwork and brotherhood and things like that, and trust. But other than that, it's very, very simple. Very, very simple movie. So if you like simple movies, go check it out. As far as spoilers go, okay, I'm going to get into the spoiler stuff here very briefly because there's not too much that I want to spoil, okay? So if you don't want to be spoiled, pause the video, go see the movie, come back and talk to me afterward. Let's talk about spoilers, okay? 1, the Technodrome. I marked out. I thought it was awesome. 2, the scene in the middle of the film where Bebop and Rocksteady are fighting the turtles in the airplane hangar. Completely, just totally over-the-top wackiness, unrealistic, complete. Like, it took me out of the movie. Now, I know that earlier in the review I said, oh, well, this is a cartoon. I know that, but this was a bit too much for me. I thought that whole sequence of them jumping out of the plane was too much. I just thought it was too much. It really reeked of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Remember that scene at the beginning of that movie way back? It really reeked of that. I thought there wasn't enough Splinter in this movie and not enough Shredder, but I guess they got a lot of screen time in the previous one. And they did open it up for a sequel. My prediction is that, because then everybody survived. Baxter Stockman is going to become the Fly in the next movie. I'm pretty sure of it, and he's going to be hunting after Shredder. I think that's going to be the story we're going to get there, which kind of happened in the TV series, so, I mean, that makes sense. It's just, if you're expecting gritty turtles, this ain't the movie for you. Didn't like Casey Jones, like I said earlier. Kind of bummed out about that. I loved the little Transformer scene where Michelangelo's in that parade and he sees the Transformer. I thought that was pretty cool, but I know that this movie's not for everyone. I know it's not. The cinephile out there will probably not like this movie because it is a kids movie. But look, it's a good kids movie, right? I thought it was a good, fun kids movie. Again, a remake of the '87 first 5 episodes. I liked the performance from Krang. I did like, Brad Garrett's Krang, but I don't think it compares even close, in my opinion, to Pat Fraley. In fact, I was wondering why Pat Fraley was not cast as Krang. I don't know. He's still alive. I don't know why they didn't just bring him in for that. He probably would have been cheap, too. And he was kind of an idiot, too. So we'll see where the story goes. Shredder kind of got completely robbed at the end of the movie. Like, dude, like what Krang did to Shredder when he froze them and stuck him in his, like, lab of toys. Which, by the way, I was looking for some Easter eggs there, but the scene went by too fast. So that's it for my review. I'm going to give the movie a thumbs up. I thought it was, again, if you go into it knowing what to expect, it's a fine movie. Don't expect it to be anything close to Civil War or anything of that ilk. It's just not going to happen. It's just way, way too much of a kid's movie, but in a good way. So let me know your thoughts down below. And again, if you're going to talk spoilers, make sure you put spoiler warning at the beginning of your comment just for everybody who hasn't seen the movie. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.